Thank you so much for your kind interest and participation, dear and respected friend. I, Randhir Kumar Gautam, on behalf of Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism, ITM University, welcome you to attend today's session. Today is a very special day, and yesterday we had celebrated International Democracy Day. So today is a very important topic, that is Gandhian way of economics. And it is a great pleasure and indeed an honor to have available with us distinguished speaker, guest, and dear and respected friends. I welcome respected chair of today's session, Professor Anand Kumar, eminent social scientist, our mentor at GSDS, and former professor from JNU. I welcome keynote speaker and resource person of today's session, Professor Vibhuti Patel, former professor, Advanced Center for Women's Studies, School of Development, Tata School of Social Science, Mumbai. I welcome discussant of today's session, Shri Sudhir Gandotra, coordinator, World Humanist Forum. I can see many friends here, Professor Gyan Gului, Antonio, Amita Bhuji, and many friends. I also extend a very warm welcome to Honorable Founder, Chancellor Sri Ramashankarji, respected Vice Chancellor Professor S.S. Vakar Sahab, and all the viewers both on Facebook platform and Zoom platform. GSDS is a platform to promote understanding of dynamics of society with a quest for freedom, justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. It focuses on knowledge and dialogue among concerned persons in India and abroad. We organize weekly dialogue on every Friday, and we look forward for your kind interest, participation, and engagement. We have a esteemed panel today. I am privileged to be the moderator of today's session. Let me give a brief introduction of Professor Vibhuti Patel. Although Professor Vibhuti Patel does not need any introduction at all, but for the sake of introduction for viewers, she is currently Vice President of Studies of Indian Association Women's Studies.
Introducing Professor Vibhuti Patel, maybe Vibhuti ji can help him by adding a few lines about herself and her present engagement, and that will save us some time.
Respected Professor Anand Kumar, today's chair, discussant Dr. Sudhir Gandotra, and moderator Professor Randhir Kumar, convener Dr. Veronica, and the esteemed participants, my co-travelers in the women's movement. I'm so happy to see Neetaben Hardikar from Anandi and Amitaben Buch and all other esteemed participants. Currently, my involvement is in Indian Association for Women's Studies. It is a platform for academicians, policymakers, activists, and researchers, and it has been there since 1981. And I'm also doing focusing on research on pandemic, the gender implications of pandemic, and also the paid and unpaid work and care economy as an economist. That has been my current interest in the research area. Thank you.
Thank you, Vibhuti ji. Actually, you are well known for understatement. So there are many more things happening in the academic circle under the leadership and inspiration of Vibhuti Ban. We are very happy that Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism has started this weekly dialogue, because unless we get into active interaction with each other and cover the domains of interest which are there for ordinary men and women of today, where Gandhi would have taken himself some initiative and interest, there is no role or value of any institute of studies around Gandhi. We were told long back in Hind Swaraj, in trapped into the paradigm of greed, you will find loss of not only your identity and dignity, but freedom. India became a slave of a faraway, remote country and people because of greed. And India will achieve freedom and humanity will achieve self-realization if we become committed for our needs as well as needs of the others. Today, United Nations is promoting sustainable development programs where we are finding that hunger, fear, hate, and violence are refusing to go away. Technology is moving, science is advancing, knowledge is growing, but the bottom line of our togetherness, that is human togetherness, considerate togetherness, cooperative togetherness, non-violent togetherness is becoming more and more impossible. When Vibhuti ji will be speaking to us, at the back of our consciousness will be aware that right at this very moment, two neighboring countries in Europe are fighting each other. Soviet Union, that is Russia today, and Ukraine. We know that our frontiers, India's frontiers, with China and Pakistan are becoming flashpoints for everybody's concern. So when we invited Professor Vibhuti Patel with the consultation of Dr. Veronica and Randhir, Gautam and Alok Vajpayee at the Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism at ITM University, Gwalior, we wanted to have some elementary understanding of Gandhian way of economics, because we have been told all these years that Gandhi was not a progressive thinker. Gandhi wanted us to go back to bullock cart age. Gandhi wanted us to forget about, keep our eyes closed from the advancements in the material world. This is all fiction. Gandhi was a very different thinker. He was more suitable for 20th century, 21st century than his own time. That was middle of the two wars and of course the era of imperialism. So with these elementary questions and concerns, we invite with due respect Professor Vibhuti Patel for next 30 to 45 minutes that it suits her, because as she can see that there are around 60 people who are willing to listen to you and then of course find time and occasion to get some responses. So I'm sure that Sudhir bhai will cover some of the questions and add some more questions, and then we'll have some opportunity for our participants. So between now and 8:30, the time is between you and Professor Vibhuti Patel. Professor Vibhuti Patel.
Thank you, Dr. Anand Kumar. With your optimistic note, you have set the stage and set the tone. And I think I am also an eternal optimist. So I would see today's difficult reality, so very challenging reality in a Gandhian perspective with optimism and hope for the planet. So Gandhian way of economics, when we talk about, it is basically, we are talking some of the important quotations of Gandhiji, that a non-violent occupation, that is occupation which is fundamentally free from violence and which involves no exploitation or envy of others. And I think today in current context, as you said, the warmongering, jingoism that's going on, I think it's so important to remember that. Another very important concern Gandhiji had was living in harmony with nature. And he says that behind the magnificent and kaleidoscopic variety, one discovers in nature a unity of purpose, design, and form, which is equally unmistakable. And I think he also talked about the diversity as an economic. Gandhiji was had a very robust understanding of the mainstream economics, and he busted the mainstream economics based on the maximization principle through his actions. So what he says, that economics which departs from or opposed to ethics is no good and should be renounced. So I think that's very, these are some of the important tenets. The basic principles of Gandhiji were simplicity, dignity of sweat labor, pasine ki kamai, decentralization, decentralized development, self-sufficiency, for it also idealized the self-sufficient village with Dr. Ambedkar challenge. That's a very different kind of argument. We can go into it during our discussion. The question of cooperation, he said that in the society that we need to have equality, a very important principle, which Gandhiji believed in. And as Professor Anand Kumar also said, that the peace building, peacemaking, and peacekeeping, they were very important. So non-violent way of governance, very important. All the human values to be guided by ethics and justice, that is it. Peace and social solidarity, at the time of difficulty, human beings come together, and that we saw so many actions of social solidarity during the 2 years of pandemic. Self-sufficient village unit and nationalization of basic industries, Swadeshi, and theory of trusteeship. And Gandhiji said way back in 1937 that the true economics never militates against highest standards of ethical standards, just as all true ethics to be worth its name must at the same time also be good economics. True economics stands for social justice. It promotes the good of all equally, including weakest, and is indispensable for a decent life. And I think now he also later, from all his body of work, we can say that it was just social justice was coupled with the environmental justice, economic justice, distributive justice, and gender justice. Gandhiji also said that wealth without work, pleasure without conscience, knowledge without character, business without ethics, or commerce without morality, or science without humanity, and worship without sacrifice, and politics without principles. These are the 7 scenes humanity need to be away from. And that's, and now, current context of pandemic, we have recently had a very, very heartbreaking incidences where we saw more than 12 lakh migrant workers and going back to the village because they were the part of informal economy. 92% of the workers don't have social protection or social security. And this, at least in India, we know what happened because of the parliamentary democracy, but in so many other Asian, African, and Latin American countries, the same scenario was there. Not much documentation has happened, or nothing, not much is there in the public domain. But this onslaught threatened the lives of unsuspecting millions living in the extreme vulnerable condition. And they were walking on the road, they were walking on the railway tracks, they walked for between 200 to 1,200 kilometers. Now, it is in this context, we need to remember that at one level, when we are talking about creating a golden corridor, now this golden corridor was the same in which people who were hungry and famished and dehydrated and ill and pregnant women in labor, they were walking. And we were talking about $5 trillion economy by 24-25. Oh, this economy for whom? Now here, Gandhiji's letter to Jawaharlal Nehru in 1945 becomes extremely important, and I quote, "When the moth approaches its doom, it whirls around faster and faster till it is burnt up. It is possible that India will not be able to escape this moth-like circling. It is my duty to try, and till my last breath, to save India and through it the world from such fate." And I think that is the kind of determination people here have. And I think that gives us ray of hope in this very, very unknowing scenario. Currently, the youth unemployment in our country is 40% as per the CMI data. Now, these are the challenges that we are facing. And with this backdrop, we need to see how the Gandhiji would have reacted, and what does the Gandhian economics tell us. Gandhian economic talks about the economic foundation of the non-cooperation movement. That was the rebuttal of the colonial theory of comparative advantage in international trade, which is now currently touted under the neoliberal economics. It was at that time, like in Gandhi's time, it was Emile and Ricardo who provided the rationale for exploitative division that forced India to produce only primary products to be exported to the United Kingdom at a throwaway price, and finished goods to be imported from Britain at an extremely high price. Gandhiji had carefully studied Dadabhai Nauroji's Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, which was written in 1902. And that provided robust data on drain of wealth by East India Company. He didn't accept that there were free forces of market, because that's what the neoliberal economics tells us now also, that will bring equilibrium in the Indian economy. In fact, Gandhiji was aware that rules of markets were politically constructed to subserve the colonial economic exploitation of Indian masses. And he accepted the role of state, and that's why he said that there is a role of the state policies, which is very important, and that was debated in a vision documents around planning economic development, both by the Congress and also by the socialists. They had what would be the planned economy in a independent India. And similarly, Hansaben Mehta and Madam Rajwade, they also prepared women in planned economy. So his economic philosophy was crystallized in Hindu Swaraj and Home Rule that integrated economics, politics, and technology with ethics. He also talked about trusteeship, the concept of trusteeship, which the left has criticized severely, but Gandhiji experimented that, and he also mediated when the textile workers were on strike in Ahmedabad. Addressing glaring social and economic disparity through social policies, promoting decentralized development, labor-intensive technology to ensure livelihoods to all. And I think that's why he also chose Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar as chairperson of the Constituent Assembly, which prepared Constitution of India. Living in harmony with nature for sustainable future, I think that's what both the Gandhiji's principle has been very, very judiciously implemented by the ecofeminists and also by the women's rights organizations such as Anand or Masoom or Mandish Mahila Sahkari Sangatna, Seva, Rural, all of them are still implementing it. The concept of localization, that learning through experience the entire world within the presence of our immediate village and neighborhood, and to live in harmony with our environment and eschewing exploitative practices as far as possible. I think that also is a very important pillar of Gandhian economics. On regenerating our rural economy to bring about cherished dream of Gram Swaraj, I think about which I think currently also a lot is being debated after the migrants, there was after reverse migration, and where the villages, the migrant workers went to the villages and what kind of livelihood they would have. It was in that context also, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat discourse also brought in that issue. Gandhiji, there are certain quarters of a school of thoughts which say that Gandhiji was against science and technology, which is not true, because Gandhiji emphasized the need for human face to economic development, growth, science, and technology. He believed in judicious application of science and technology, and he also said that we need to differentiate between production by masses that ensures dignity to the person, the working people, and mass production that dehumanizes the workers. And I think that this particular, and he also said that it's the health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. So the public health was an important concern for him. And here this picture shows that how Gandhiji was examining the leprosy germs with microscope at Sevagram. And I think it is the pioneering work about leprosy eradication in our country has been done by the followers of Gandhiji. And I think that inspired so many social activists working in the rural and tribal areas. He also criticized the craze for, say, machinery, which leads to parasitism. What he talked about, he was not anti-machinery, but he says the craze for what they call labor-saving machinery, men go on saving labor till thousands are without work. He was really concerned about the massive unemployment in our country, and they are thrown on the open streets to die of starvation. I want to save time and labor, not for fraction of mankind, but for all. I want concentration of wealth not in the hands of few, but in the hands of all. Today, machinery merely helps a few to ride on the backs of millions. The impetus behind it all is not philanthropy to save labor, but greed. And I think this is the greed, and which is the mainstream economic talks about, that as a consumer, what you do is maximize your satisfaction. And as a producer, what you do is maximization of profit. And this is the principle which Gandhiji found unethical, that you just can't have this kind of a greed. And he also said that man is made to obey the machine. The wealthy and middle class become helpless and parasitic upon the working class, and the latter become so specialized that they also become helpless. Ordinary city dwellers cannot make his own clothing or produce or prepare his own food. The cities become parasitic upon the country, and the industrial nations upon the agricultural nations. And I think this idea was taken forward by so many economists and politicians, especially Chaudhry Charan Singh, when he talked about India versus Bharat, that how India, the cities are exploiting the rural areas, or the Schumacher's book on Small is Beautiful, the whole unequal relationship between rural and urban population. That has been brought out again and again. And the Shetkari Sangatna, Dr. Sharad Joshi, he was also an economist in World Bank, and who gave up his career, came back to Maharashtra, organized the rural workers, formed Shetkari Sangatna. In that also this idea of exploitative relationship between rural and urban, India versus Bharat, was debated. And now you see a very strong, educated, articulate, erudite leadership in the rural areas has emerged. And we saw that the opposition to the 3 farm laws that happened, and the struggle was continued for more than a year. And then farmers, they also got the global solidarity from the farmers and the community, the citizens all over the world. When it comes to the question of morality, like Gandhiji talked about, that the economics that hurts the moral well-being of an individual or a nation are immoral and therefore sinful. So that was he said in the context of colonial exploitation. But I think today also we see that in the post-colonial world also, how the transnational corporations, multinational corporations, they are the ones who have agenda-setting power. They are the price maker. They decide the fate of countries, small countries. They have to, what we are seeing in Sri Lanka, the way the economy has been completely shattered, and the human miseries, the galloping inflation that Sri Lanka is facing, that how the global corporate world, or the world capitalism, is predatory, it is very extractive, and it is creating massive human misery. In this context, I think Gandhiji's statement extremely important, where he says that in his last days of his life, when he said that, and I quote, "I will give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt, or when the self becomes too much for you, try the following expedient. Recall the face of the poorest, the most helpless man whom you may have seen, and ask yourself, if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him, will we as feminists, we always add he or she be able to gain anything by it? Will it restore him or her to control over his or her own life and destiny? Then you will find your doubts melting away." So I think this is a very, very important thing that we need to remember. When Gandhiji talked about simple living and high thinking, when he said that as consumers, we need to give up hedonistic greed, hoarding, and overconsumption. I think that has come up again and again in several social movements. Here we have representatives from Aam Aadmi Party, like Amitabh Ben, or we have Anandi, where educated young professionals are working in the most difficult circumstances in the tribal and rural areas. I think they have also raised this concern very strongly. We have ecofeminists and the environmental activists who always quote Gandhiji when he said that earth provides enough for to satisfy every man's need, but not man's greed. And I think that is why the state policy plays a very important role in Gandhian economics to promote social justice, economic justice, distributive justice, gender justice, environmental and climatic justice. Now, when Gandhiji talked about the rural development, the Gram Swaraj in the contemporary context, how do we see it? That Gandhiji affirmed that India's soul lives in villages. For Gandhiji, villages were the basic unit of social organization, and therefore the villages should be self-sufficient. The pandemic has also made the whole world struggle to procure basic goods when all other sectors of the economy were showing zero rate of growth. It was the Indian agriculture which showed 11% of growth. Okay, so the necessity of various sectors of the society, the food security that we could have is only because of the contribution of the agrarian sector. When it comes to, say, medical equipment, or very few countries, they had a stock. While India, we had a robust industries, and we were the ones who provided medicines and the COVID-related vaccines to several developing countries, where the international giants and the multinational and transnational corporations were not even ready to give up their intellectual property rights and the royalty. India has an adequate number of pharmaceutical industries and has made strides in manufacturing and supplies of medicine to more than 120 countries during last 2 years. And the crisis has taught us the lesson that every country must possess basic amenities for self-survival. And I think that's what Gandhiji also said, that the local economies should be self-sufficient, encourage the craft-based occupation, use of local material and local talent pool. That is very important to, and it's central to the Gandhian economics. What we saw, the activities done by the citizens organization, community-based organization, non-government organization, civil society organization, self-help groups, elected representatives of local self-government bodies. During these last 2 years, we did not see the mass starvation deaths, because there was a lot of reporting that was happening. Okay, the moment the reports of the hunger and starvation were there, it was the civil society organization. They managed to read them. And I think this is also Gandhian economics, that social solidarity is extremely important. And these are the organizations, the civil society organizations, which transcended coronaphobia. And they also prepared democratically. They ran the community kitchens, prepared masks. Even about the menu and how to run the camps with 2,000 people to 12,000 in Bhiwandi. There were camps where there were 12,000 workers who were in the textile industry, and so democratically they were managing this. So what we saw during the pandemic, I think so many of Gandhian messages and the Gandhian economics principles were experimented and were put into praxis, whether it was a question of relief operations or volunteering for community kitchens. The boys who had never done any work, like even lifted glass of water, they were the ones who were cooking and bellowing chapatis and who were cutting vegetables. The networking with the supply chain, those who had mobile phone, those who had two-wheelers and four-wheelers, they were using their personal resources for contacting grocers and farmers and lifting things from one place to another. They were coordinating with the government organizations to get water in the community or LPGs. The micro-planning, need assessment, identification of specific needs of specific households, elderly person had different need, diabetic patient or heart patient or a pregnant woman or children had a different need. So this is what was done by the community. They used their modern technology, social media, whether it was audiovisual clips or messages essays or short films or posters or directory of services were prepared by the people. Preparation of educational and recreational material for the children in camp, that was also done. Using of personal vehicles for relief goods, so many webinars, Zoom talks, panel discussions for citizens, they were done. Even in the camps, they saw to it that the workers who were stranded during the lockdown, they got some recreation in the evening. And this is the kind of work which our college students or our the children, they were doing in the camp. This makes us more and more convinced about Gandhian principle, that you just can't, you have to translate the neoclassical economics, which only talks about the human greed and hedonism, community, building a community, living with the community, sharing and caring becomes very important. Care economy, there is a special interest in care economy in the post-pandemic world. When we talk, then another very important concern is for self-reliance. When Gandhiji talked about the relevance of self-reliance at a local level, I think it's very important in the context of globalization and outsourcing, which has become the key principle of the business. And now this concept is being re-examined in the light of pandemic, which challenged so many assumptions. No, so that is very important. When Gandhiji talked about spinning wheel, which represents to me a hope for the masses, people called him mad, and they said he was completely out of sync. No, but that's not true. We know that the important role that Khadi and even the self-help groups are using this model. Gandhiji talked about economics, which is untrue, which ignores and disregards moral values. And what we have seen that in the recent times, we had witnessed exceptional growth of corporate profit and individual wealth, most in the areas where general population faced highest prices and challenges. So these are the areas of energy, cooking fuel, that means food, and pharmaceutical industries. As per the Oxfam report 2022, which is released, I think this week only, last month in October, that profiting from pain, that report, it talks that a new billionaire was created every 30 hours during the global pandemic. But nearly 1 million people were pushed into extreme poverty at nearly same rate in 2022 alone. Oxfam has urged, and I quote, governments to introduce a one-off tax on billionaires, pandemic profiteers to help regular people pay for rapidly rising cost of food, energy, and to create annual wealth tax of 2% on millionaires and 5% on billionaires. It says this tax would generate $2.52 trillion per year, which could provide things like universal health care and social protection for every resident of low or lower middle class income. Some of the Latin American countries, they have adopted this. I think we need to build a global public opinion in favor of taxing the pandemic profiteers. This is so much in tune with the Gandhian economics. When it comes to the question of environment, where Gandhiji talks about respect for diversity, both in the human civilization and also in relation to the environment. And we know that how Gandhian principle of living in harmony with environment was put into practice by women in Tehri Garhwal way back in 1972, when they challenged the arbitrary felling of tree by the contractors and the kind of development trajectory which the Himalayan valleys were forced to adopt. And they started the Chipko movement, and which inspired so many ecological movements throughout the world, whether it was the Save Amazon movement in Latin America, or Apiko movement in Karnataka, Save Girnar movement, and currently in Mumbai, Save RA Forest movement. What Gandhiji talked about, that diversity there certainly is in the world, but it means neither inequality nor untouchability. So it's very, very important that the diversity should not be based on the foundation of racism or casteism or religious bigotry. what we are doing to the forest of the world is but a mirror reflection of what we are doing to ourselves and to one another. I think it's a very, very important message which Gandhiji has left with us in the context of climate crisis that we are facing, and the kind of massive the climate change which is causing so much of destruction of property, livelihoods, and people. Now, how is Gandhian principle and Gandhian economics being implemented by the social movements throughout the world? Here I'm talking about 3 case studies. One is a Seva. It was in the early 70s when the textile industry had adopted rationalization and mechanization and automation of textile industry. This young Gandhian, Ilaben Bhatt, she was faced as a trade union leader and the lawyer of Textile Labor Association. What would be the fate of lakhs of women who were generationally in the textile industry? And she came up with a model of trade union, self-employed women's association. She was in dilemma whether to register it as a cooperative or association or mandal, but she decided to register it as a trade union with a twin objective, not only of chakka jam or fighting against the exploitation, but also linking women and all these working class women into the development efforts. And currently we know that Seva model has become globally very, very prominent and important. That Seva is not only in Seva Ahmedabad, Seva Gujarat, or Seva Bharat, Seva Asia, and Seva is also training development activists in Africa and Latin America. Another very important model that we have is Mandesh Mahila Sahkari Mandli. When we say that in the 21st century, it is the financial capital which rules the roost, and financial capital has been extremely predatory, and how the kind of private microfinances they are operating, or the international financial banks are operating, and they have played massive damage to the several nation states. They have been ruined by them. As against that, we have this model of a collective effort of poorest of the poor women who started their cooperative bank. They also use modern science and technology. And these women, what did they say? We don't want to become millionaire. We don't want to become billionaire. What we need is a dignified life and bright future for our children. This is the aim with which Mandesh Mahila Sahkari Mandli they started, and has provided that against the hopeless situation, how to create hopes for thousands of women. Third example is that of a Hunar Shala, the young engineers dedicated to Gandhian principles. They started building communities, especially their model of after the earthquake in Kutch made them nationally known, and now I think they are globally known, whether it was a floods in Nepal or earthquake in Ladakh or anywhere there was a damage to the community. This Hunar Shala activists, they are training people, enhancing the capacities of the local community, using local material and local method of people's habitat or the existence. They train them to be self-sufficient. We see that when Gandhiji, when it comes to the gender question, being a feminist, most of my talks about Gandhian philosophy has been around the gender question, where currently when we are talking about unpaid care work in the economic thinking, and we are talking about the time utilization study and the adequate protection to the paid care worker, and recognition and acknowledgement of unpaid care work, which all of us do for our family members, whether it is a collection of fuel, fodder, water, doing the cooking, cleaning, caring of elderly, caring of children. So even about that, Gandhiji was so far-sighted, especially when you see the correspondence between Rajkumari Amrit Kaur and Gandhiji on most of the gender questions. Gandhiji was extremely aware. Whatever we in the women's movement have done in last 40 years as in our collective struggle, I think all those issues were being discussed by Gandhiji in a very simple language when he prepared a primer for children, because early childhood education is extremely important to change the mindset. Gandhiji prepared a primer for children for primary school, which is called Balpothi. And in Balpothi, where it is a conversational way in which he conveys his message. The mother asks her son, "Dear son, you should also help in housework as your sister does." Son answers, "But she's a girl. I am a boy. Boy plays and studies." Sister says, "How come? I also like to play and study." Brother says, "I do not deny that, but dear sister, you have to do housework as well." The mother says, "Why should a boy not do housework?" Son says, "Because boy has to earn money when he grows up, therefore he must study." And then mother's answer is that you are wrong, my son. Woman also makes an earning for the family, where he acknowledges, Gandhiji acknowledges the contribution of the housework. There is a lot to learn in housework, house cleaning, cooking, laundry. By doing housework, you will develop various skills of the body, will feel self-reliant. In a good housework, you need to use your eyes, hands, and brain. Therefore, these activities are educative and they build your character. Men and women both need to be educated equally in housework, because home belongs to both. I think this is a very, very important message, and I think we need to all the Bharpothis of Gandhiji, they need to be translated in all Indian languages, and they should be part, because the new education policy has given great emphasis to early childhood education. So they should become part of syllabi. Gandhiji's agenda, whatever he talked about economic governance or economic policy, or the role of the state and the society and the individual in the economy, I think they're extremely relevant to attain the goal of sustainable development goals. We all know there are 17 goals. Gandhiji was the first goal, no poverty. Gandhian economics addresses this question. Zero hunger, good health and well-being, goal number 3, quality education. 5th is gender equality, clean water and sanitation. 7th goal is affordable and clean energy, where it talks about living in harmony with nature and choose the model which are supportive to local economy. Decent work and economic growth, goal number 8. Goal number 9 is industry, innovation and infrastructure that should not damage the environment. 10 is a reduced inequalities, which was very, very important concern for Gandhian economics. Sustainable cities and communities, so the relationship of cities versus village and also within the city, I think that has to be sustainable. The kind of production method, production processes that we use, the consumption pattern that we create. We know that in Sri Lanka for a long time, the whole policies were consumption oriented. And the people also develop the mentality of entitlement that the state has to give it. And you know where they are today. Responsible consumption and production becomes very important. 13th number goal is climate action. 14th is a life below water, not to create any damage or the threat to the life below water. And life on land, the concern about our habitat, concern about the agriculture, concern about forestry, concern about people who are in the mountainous region. And 16th goal is a peace, justice, and strong institutions. We need to create structures and mechanisms to make our policies not only on paper, but also implemented judiciously. And the 17th goal, which talks about partnership for the goal, I think that's why we need to create a global consensus about the Gandhian way of economics. And it is the best approach to sustainable development that aims, as and in Gandhiji's language, fulfill the present needs without compromising the needs of the future generation. These are some of the references which I have used for today's lecture. Dr. Bole's work on essays on Gandhian social economic thoughts. He was a professor in IIT. They were constantly confronted by the technocrats, and he also was completely convinced about Gandhian socio-economic thoughts. Gandhiji's book, Hind Swaraj, I think it's easily downloadable. It is available in several Indian languages. There are so many interpretations and analysis of Hind Swaraj. Gandhiji's works have been also compiled, Economic and Industrial Life and Relations. and B.N. Ghosh's work on Gandhian political economics and principles, practice, and policies. That's very important. Madhukar and Surya Prakash Rao's work on economics of ahimsa, technology, and environment, relevance of Gandhi in a Gandhian philosophy in human development. That's very important. Dadabhai Nauroji's work, which had strongly influenced Gandhiji, poverty and un-British rule in India. I think that is also in public domain. I have written 2 essays which are there on the Gandhi Ashram and website. They are easily downloadable. Schumacher's work, Small is Beautiful. There are several interpretations, analysis, and also both in YouTube video as well as there are articles are there in public domain. They can be easily accessed. And Terry Wiesel and Chandrakant Langare's 2 volumes, Rethinking Mahatma Gandhi, the Global Appraisal, and Reflections on Mahatma Gandhi, the Global Perspective, where more than 50 scholars throughout our country and abroad, they have contributed their articles on about relevance of Gandhian thought in current context. And D.G. Tendulkar's compilation of Mahatma, Life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. There are 8 volumes published by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Now, once again, I would like to conclude my talk with the important statements of Gandhiji. One is economic equality is the master key to non-violent independence. So again, when we say that there can't be peace without justice, okay, the justice becomes very important. Equal opportunity, equal treatment, and equal rewards for your sweat labor becomes very important. And Gandhiji also says that Khadi organizations are not merely economic organizations, they are benevolent institutions too. Their aim is not to serve anybody's selfish interests, but to promote public welfare. And I think the same principle, I think we need to bring in our macroeconomy, mesoeconomy, and also micro economy. So the real meaning of economic equality is to each according to his needs. That's what Gandhiji was saying. And that has been, this slogan has really caught the imagination of so many social activists who gave up the career or who chose a path of development with social justice. So Gandhiji's dictum, that be the change that you want to see in the world. So it becomes what we feminists say, that theory and praxis. You may do pontification, you may theorize. Theories are important, analysis is important, but that is totally useless if you don't put it into praxis. So theory and praxis, they are very important. And Gandhiji's dictum here becomes very, very important for us to galvanize all of us into action wherever we are. Thank you very
much. Thank you so much, Professor Vibhuti Patel, madam. It was very informative and very thought-provoking session. And whenever Professor Vibhuti Patel speaks for 30 minutes, it means 30 hours for us. Because the kind of content and information we get, it's amazing. And you almost touch almost all important dimensions of Gandhian economics. You mentioned very deep thinker Schumacher, who taught us life lessons from Gandhian economics. It was Gandhi who gave constructive program, 18 constructive program. And if you see the sustainable development model, you will find almost all important means means 2 or 3 you won't see. But more than 15 points in sustainable development, Gandhi talked about in 1946. So you can understand his far-sightedness, you know. And it is very important, as Professor Gautam said, that there was no economic problem which could be separated from the moral problem. And there, the question of desire comes. Gandhi has only one problem with the modernity, that is desire. And because of desire, we have become the kind of victim of industrialization. So in that sense, he is also criticizing. So it was very insightful, and you almost touched all dimensions of Gandhian economics with So now we are going to invite our discussant of today's session, Shri Sudhir Gandotra ji, to kindly share his thought on the very presentation. Yes.
First of all, my heartfelt thanks to Professor Anand Kumar and Randhir for inviting a uneducated person like me, uneducated in the sense of Gandhian scholars. And the views that have been put by respected Dr. Patel, they once again, I would like to conclude them in a very simple way. They once again explain very clearly what Gandhi stood for and the fact that Gandhi is the most relevant way of life today. I don't think anything more can be said about that. People who want to discuss more or argue more or whatever, I think they are wasting their time. It is time to take these things forward, which Dr. Patel has put in such a simple way. As Randhir said, that what you said in 30 minutes is worth 30 hours or more. I would say it's a lifetime study that you have probably concised into 30 minutes, and it's wonderful. I come here with a different point of view, not a differing point of view. I am in front of the Gandhian scholars. I am like that rustic farmer from a remote village who does not have any machines to tell what the weather would be, but who looks at the sky and says, yeah, tomorrow it will rain. Or this season, the rains will be delayed. And we should put this seed or that seed, and we should do this practice or that practice to get the best thing. What I mean to say, friends, is that I'm not a Gandhian scholar. And let me confess that I have not read any of Gandhi's book completely. And I've read maybe about 4 or 5 or 6 of them incompletely. But coming from the humanist movement, where we understand that violence is an attitude, and in the same way, non-violence is an attitude. And there is a way to internalize both. And there is a way to recognize each other in your heart. With that methodology that I learned in the humanist movement, I find Gandhi alive in my heart. I can feel each and every such educated and in a way complex words that, for example, Dr. Patel said, I can feel Gandhi in my heart with them. I may not be able to repeat the same words or the same kind of, explanations, but I know what Gandhi is. I will not say what Gandhi was. I will say what Gandhi is, because it is very important to feel Gandhi today in case we want to solve the problems of today. There is no other way out of this, in my opinion. To understand non-violence, we need to live it. We need to feel it. And there is a very, very easy way to do that, is to start treating others as you would have them treat you. This is also known as a golden principle. And for people who find this very complex, Gandhiji's talisman is very easy way to find things. Think of the poorest man or woman whom you have seen, or I would humbly add to that, whom you can imagine. And then think that what you plan to do, would it be good for them? Would it be useful for that person or not? And you will get the answer to the result of your policies and what you should do. So it is the humanism that was presented by Silo as New Universal Humanism that helped me discover Gandhi in my heart. So that is another way to look at Gandhi. As you said about the market economy, there is no law. It is not a science. It is just a bunch of tricks meant to loot the social wealth and grab it into monopolistic hands of few. Gandhiji spoke of decentralization, and this economy is totally about centralization. And this economy is run, managed, conducted, controlled by the international speculative capital. Finally, a book has come recently. I don't recall the name of the author, but Randhir, I will share the video with you, where it has been very well explained and written that today only about 15% of the total capital of the world is in circulation. The rest is controlled as wealth by a few people who keep on increasing that wealth by buying and controlling things. The way that things are today, it will not go very far. It cannot go very far. But we, the Gandhians, who are educated about Gandhi or who feel about Gandhi, they have, I feel, a very special responsibility. I will give an example. Yesterday, or was it day before yesterday, the Putin, the president of Russia, was talking about his view of the war. I certainly criticize him for taking to violence for resorting a problem, but the problem has other parts to it. The issue that we face as Gandhians, as people who believe in non-violence, is to find a non-violent solution to these big problems. The problems which can cause a nuclear war anytime. And even if they don't cause a nuclear war, the war that is happening is already damaging the whole of society, the whole of world. This conflict and its results are not limited to Russia and Ukraine as we all know it. So I think there is a challenge that we have is to find solutions to such things and force the politicians of today to take those solutions into practice and see that the world is run with non-violence. The humanist movement, in a way, takes Gandhi's word forward, his work forward, because the movement is built on the central thing of non-violence. And non-violence not in theory, but non-violence in action. What we know as Gandhiji's creative activities, which he said that everybody should do, is what we propose as non-violent activities in life. How to live with non-violence, how to work with non-violence, how to conduct business with non-violence, how to conduct all the relationships with non-violence is what we learn. And there we explain the violence and non-violence in more details. For example, we say, that is the humanist movement says, that violence has two aspects to it. There is external violence, which is in our activities, and there is internal violence, which is in our heart and our mind. For example, violence is not only physical violence when somebody is killed, like this war is happening and all that. There is also economic violence when people are hurt economically. There is gender violence. There is racial violence when people are discriminated based on race or color. There is religious violence when religion is used to divide people, and we are seeing plenty of it happening next door today in the country. There is moral violence when we do nothing about the violence that is going on, that is moral violence. And there is also an internal violence that we carry within us, all the negativity that we have, because that causes violence in our action, fears, our insecurity, injustice, resentments, frustrations, enmity, and negativity. And in the humanist movement, we have discovered ways to practically overcome these. So we bring that to the table as the Gandhi Plus activities to change the world to a better world. I would say in a very, very simple, once again, a rustic method of saying things, straightforward, simple, Gandhi is the most relevant way of life today. Not only for me and we people here, not only for India, not only for Asia, but for the whole world. Because that gives a solution to all the problems that we are facing and taking humanity to a new direction. This is what, in brief, that I would like to say about this. And I think from here we can, Randhir, take things forward in the way of question and answers. And whenever
Yes.
you say, I would like to explain a little about the World Humanist Forum. Should I do it now or we do it a little later after the question and answers?
You can do it now also.
Okay. So from the humanist movement, I have taken up responsibility of a special activity, which is called World Humanist Forum. And this is divided into five regions: Asia Pacific, Europe, Africa, North America, and South America. The idea of the forum is, as Dr. Anand Kumar said in the very beginning, that people need to talk, people need to discuss, people need to have conversations. Doesn't matter the differences. They should come to the table and talk and learn. When we talk, we learn not to fight, or we fight with arguments. We may argue on things, and that's it. We don't do violence. So this forum invites organizations with two conditions: people who believe in non-violence and people who believe in no discrimination, to join the forum. There is no membership. There is no form to be filled up. You go to the website, fill up your form about your details, and you create a Facebook-like interactive page of your organizations. So you tell the world what you are doing. And there are other organizations like you in various fields that you will find there. And you may invite them to your activities and do joint campaigns. The idea is, let us sit down, discuss, talk about each other, tell others about what we are doing and learn from others. And from there, a lot of further things can happen. From the people, a small team that is coordinating the forum, their responsibility would be to make sure that the site keeps working, number one. Number two, that nobody comes there who promotes or does violence or discrimination. If they do, we throw them out. Very simple. We cut their connections on the site. And to whatever activities are happening, we make sure that we inform this to everybody what is happening. So whatever you are doing, the forum will amplify your voice across the world. We'll tell the world what we are doing. There is a partner to the forum, and that is a press agency run by humanist volunteers across the world. It is called Presenza. Presenza is probably the only one press agency of its kind in the world. Why do you say only one? Because number one, it publishes news every day in 10 languages, but it does not have a paid staff anywhere in the world. Everybody is a volunteer, but they work like an organized press agency. Everything is on time and things are done properly. Presenza.com is the website. So we invite you to this forum where we will take your interview, tell the world what we are doing. Whatever you want to do, we are going to be your voice without the censorship. The only conditions are non-violence and no discrimination. I think for today's, that's enough.
Thank you. Thank you, Sudhirji. And it is really very important to know your work and the kind of work you are doing. So, dear and respected friends, this is the time for question answer. So, if you have any question, please indicate me in the chat box. And I can see some question.
I have read the questions. One very important.
Yes, please.
You read the questions. Okay, I have also read them. So first one is about that. What was the difference between Gandhiji's thoughts as far as economics is concerned and that suppose socialist group? I think socialist groups, they talked about the people's plan. No, so when the 1935, the Congress gave a plan for the independent India, socialists under the leadership of a young lawyer, Mr. Tarkunde, and many other, they were also influenced by M.N. Roy's ideology. And they said that it should be the people's plan. So one is very important. Second one is that nationalization of not only strategic industries, but full production in post-independence period should be based on assessed needs of the masses so that nobody starves. Third one is about the land question, that there should be nationalization of land and it should be under the state control. And the absentee landlordism should be completely given up. So they were also part of Congress. So they were called Congress Socialists. No, so that is there. Second one is that the idea of the difference between Gandhiji and Ambedkarji, it was mainly because of the question of caste. Because what Gandhiji, the ideas on Varnashram Vyavastha, where he said that he supported Varnashram Vyavastha because all of us, when we do manual work, we are Shudra. When we do intellectual work, we are Brahmin. And he said that Varnashram system, at certain stage of history, it played important role. But what Gandhiji said, Ambedkarji said that Varnashram system is based on a graded hierarchy which deprives Shudras and Atishudras of their basic human dignity and right, and the social mobility, economic mobility is not possible. When Gandhiji talked about self-sufficient village, they said, how can you glorify this village? These villages were based on Varnashram system. They were based on a Jajmani system. It was based on a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and Atishudra. And they were the outcasts. They were not even allowed to stay in the village. So these were the differences between them. The caste was a major issue around which the differences were there. But because of Ambedkarji's perspective, he was chosen as a chairperson of Constitution of India because he was sensitive to this kind of a graded hierarchy and what kind of social policies, the measures that we can bring through fundamental rights and the directive principles. So Gandhiji was sensitive to what Ambedkarji was believing in it. Third one is a question of trusteeship, highly contentious issue, because what Gandhiji perceived as a capitalist and the owner's Malik as a trustee of their ward. So that itself is based on the principle of inequality, that you have some people who are your trustees and you infantilize the masses. So that is a major difference that you have. When you believe in equality, when you believe in equal opportunity, then how can you say that certain set of people, they are the trustees? And the history has also proved that these trustees were not interested in the welfare of the community, but they were very, very self-seeking, and that's what we are seeing currently. There is a question of even what I think Sudhir Bhai told us about the whole capitalism of the 21st century. I think Thomas Piketty's work, Capitalism in 21st Century, is extremely important. And what he said is true, that it is this speculative capitalism doesn't give opportunity to anyone for any kind of common good. No, the common good is not their concern. It is basically the hedonism and consumerist culture, and only those who have purchasing power and the kind of volatility they have created in the world economy. That is, and their instruments like General Agreement of Trade and Tariff or Intellectual Property Regime or World Trade Organization, whose interest does it subserve? That's very important. And the question currently, I think Sudhir Bhai is right when he says that the war is currently, officially, there are 200 places where the wars are being fought. They may be a localized war or a provincial war or a country war or a civil war. So that kind of situation. And in that context also, Gandhiji becomes very important. There is one participant who says that, can you summarize your lecture in Hindi? I can do it only in 2 or 3 minutes. मैंने जो कहा वो था कि गांधी जी के जो अर्थशास्त्र समझने की उनकी जो ये थी, उनमें आता था जीवन में सादगी होनी चाहिए, पसीने की कमाई होनी चाहिए, विकेंद्रित रूप से देश का या अपने इलाके का विकास करना चाहिए, हमें आत्मनिर्भर होना चाहिए, एक दूसरे के साथ सहकार करना चाहिए, हमारे जीवन हमारे एक मकसद हमारे समाज में समानता प्रस्तावित करने का होना चाहिए, हमें अहिंसा के जरिए से अहिंसा का इस्तेमाल करके हमारे समाज में शांति बनाए रखना और शांति खड़ी करना, जहां भी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, जहां भी लड़ाई हो रहे हैं, वहां शांति बनाना, और मानव मूल्यों को अपने नैतिकता और न्याय निष्ठा की बुनियाद पे खड़ा करना, और हमें जो सोशल सॉलिडारिटी, जो कोई मुसीबत में कोई भी समुदाय या देश आ जाए तो उसके मदद में जाना, हमारे जो गांव है, गांव को शहरों पे निर्भर न रखते हुए उनको उनके स्वनिर्भर बनाना, और जो भी महत्व की जो उद्योग है वो देश के सभी जन लोगों के लिए, सभी लोगों के लिए, आम जनता के लिए उपयोग में आने चाहिए, नहीं कि चंद जो मालिक है उनके हाथ में। और स्वदेशी हमें स्वदेशी अपने देश के जो भी पैदा होता है उसको हमें उसका इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए। दूसरी बात, उन्होंने धर्म की बात की कि जो हम सिर्फ अर्थशास्त्र की बात नहीं कर सकते, हमें हमारे अर्थशास्त्र में नैतिकता लानी होगी। यदि हम पैसे ही इकट्ठा करते हैं काम किए बिना, मुफ्त की रोटी तोड़ते हैं, वो भी गलत है। हमें पसीने की कमाई लानी चाहिए। हम पूरा सिर्फ अपनी ही खुशी में रहेंगे और दूसरे की दुख के दर्द नहीं बांटेंगे, वो भी गलत है। यदि हमारे पास ज्ञान है, वो ज्ञान का हम इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे दूसरों को आगे लाने के लिए या अपना चरित्र बनाने के, वो ज्ञान निकम्मा है। हम जो व्यापार करते हैं और हमारा जो रोजगार जो बढ़ाते हैं, उसमें भी नैतिकता होनी चाहिए। और हम जो विज्ञान और तकनीक का विकास कर रहे हैं, उसमें भी मानवता, जो विज्ञान मानव जात को नुकसान करे वो हमें नहीं, वो ज्ञान के खिलाफ नहीं थे, वो तकनीक के खिलाफ नहीं थे। और जो हम बहुत अपने आप को धार्मिक समझते हैं, लेकिन हम बलिदान देने के लिए तैयार नहीं है, दूसरों का छीन लेते, वो भी गलत है। और हमारा जो राजनीति हम करते हैं, वो राजनीति में भी सिद्धांत होने चाहिए। और ये बात, उसके बाद मैंने हमारे कोविड के जो दुखमयी अनुभव थे उसकी बात की, और किस तरह से गांधीयन जो सिद्धांत है उससे हम आगे ला सकते हैं। गांधी जी के औरतों के प्रति जो विचार है, पर्यावरण के प्रति विचार है, मानव के जो बड़ी बड़ी कैलेमिटीज या दुख दर्द आ जाते हैं उसके प्रति विचार है, वो सभी की मैंने बात की। और किस तरह से चिपको आंदोलन जो 1972 में खड़ा हुआ और आज एक हमें जब लंबे अरसे के विकास की बात करते हैं, उसमें भी ये गांधीयन विचारधारा जो 17 गोल्स लक्ष्य बनाए हुए हैं, उसमें भी गांधीयन विचारधारा कितनी महत्व की है, ये बात मैंने कही। शुक्रिया। मुझे लगता है आपको
जी
अभी समझ,
बहुत
क्योंकि
धन्यवाद।
मेरे इसीलिए मैं मेरे पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन में बहुत सारे चित्र भी डालती हूँ, ताकि ये भाषा का जो सवाल है हमेशा प्रॉब्लम। मैं हिंदी बोलती हूँ तो दक्षिण भारत के लोगों को प्रॉब्लम आ जाता है, उनको ये आ जाता है।
सो सतीश चौधरी जी का हाथ उठा हुआ है, लेकिन दो प्रश्न, there are question some people directly text on me. One is asking about, please explain the theory of labor from Gandhian point of view. And the second question he is asking about that theory of labor value. You know, Adam Smith talks about and Ricardo talks about Sahi Mulya hai. But what is Gandhian perspective of labor? And I can see one hand. Satish Chaudhary ji, I request madam to kindly note down this question, so that you can answer at the same time. Yes, Satish Chaudhary ji.
Vibhuti ji mentioned about Dr. Ambedkar being in the Constituent Assembly as chair of the drafting committee. I have always wondered how he got that position, because so many people were very much against him. And somebody had even remarked that we have not only closed all the doors for him to come in, but even the windows, or something like that, to that effect. So how did he get to that position of chairpersonship of the drafting commission? Can you please tell us if you know? You're muted.
I think you are muted.
No, we can't hear you. You have to unmute and then start all over again.
तो पहला जो प्रश्न है लेबर थियरी ऑफ वैल्यू का, कि जो जिसको हम हमारे अर्थशास्त्र में अर्थशास्त्र का पिता माना जाता है आदम स्मिथ, उन्होंने ये बात की कि जो भी समाज में पैदा होता है, हमारे अर्थतंत्र में जो कुछ भी पैदा होता है वो लेबर से होता है। ह्यूमन स्वेट, ब्लड एंड आर्टरीज, उसके वजह से होता है। और ये जो लेबर है वो सोशल लेबर है। हम अकेले करेंगे, हम गुफा में रह के लेबर करेंगे, वो नहीं है। क्योंकि यदि मैंने अनाज उगाया और आपने कपड़े बनाए तो हम एक दूसरे के साथ व्यवहार करेंगे। ये व्यवहार में क्या किस तरह का, किसको फायदा होता है, किसको नुकसान होता है, ये बात हो जाती है। लेकिन उन्होंने एक बात कही कि ये जो भी पैदा होता है वो श्रम से होता है, लेकिन उन्होंने क्या कहा कि मजदूर जो श्रम करते हैं उनको सब्सिस्टेंस वेज ही देना चाहिए, कि जो भी मालिक है वो मजदूरों को इतना ही वेतन दो कि जिससे वो जी सके और अगली पीढ़ी को जिंदा रख सके। मतलब कि बच्चे पैदा करें और वो बच्चे 20 साल के बाद वो भी मजदूर बन जाए, 15 साल के बाद। 50 लेबर फोर्स की जो व्याख्या है, परिभाषा है, 15 साल में आप काम करने के लायक हो जाते। तो ओनली सब्सिस्टेंस वेज, वो जिंदा रह सके उतना ही वेतन देना चाहिए। तो मजदूर इकट्ठे हो जाएंगे, वो यूनियन बनाएंगे, वो ज्यादा वो ये भी मांगेंगे, वेतन भी मांगेंगे, लेकिन किस तरह से आप ये वेतन उनके वेतन को कभी भी वो जिंदा रह सके उससे ज्यादा मत दीजिए, नहीं तो वो मजदूर नहीं रहेगा। तो मजदूर तो होना ही चाहिए और वो पीढ़ी के पीढ़ी मजदूर होना चाहिए, ये बात आती है। रिकार्डो की बात में आता है, रिकार्डो भी लेबर थियरी ऑफ वैल्यू में भी कहते हैं, लेकिन वो साथ में रेंट की थियरी भी लाते हैं कि जो लोग के पास संपत्ति है, जमीन हो या कोई वो छोटा सा कारखाना हो, वो सभी लोग का रेंट, उनको रेंट से भी आमदनी होती है। जो लोग के पास पूंजी है, क्योंकि आपको मालूम होगा कि पूंजीवाद का उद्भव मर्केंटाइल कैपिटलिज्म, जो लोग ने बनिए लोगों ने जो पैसे इकट्ठे किए उससे फिर उन्होंने अपनी पूंजी लगाई, तो उनको वो इंटरेस्ट भी मिलते हैं। तो रिकार्डो भी लेबर थियरी को मानते ही है, लेकिन वो भी क्या कहते हैं कि लेबर को सब्सिस्टेंस से आगे नहीं जाना चाहिए। इनफैक्ट रिकार्डो ने तो पुअर लॉ बनाया कि आप गरीब होने की वजह से आप गुनहगार हो। इसीलिए आपको मालूम होगा कि इंग्लैंड में जो पूरे औद्योगिक क्रांति के बाद जमीन कमोडिटी बन गई, जमीन बेचने लायक चीज बन गई, जो सामंतवाद में नहीं था। और उसकी वजह से सामंत, जो बड़े बड़े सामंत थे, उन्होंने अपनी जमीनें बेचना, और उसको एनक्लोजर कहते हैं, उसको बोला ये मेरी जमीन है, और अपनी जमीन पे रहने वाले जो भी मजदूर थे, किसान थे, उन लोगों को निकाल दिया। और वो कहाँ जाएंगे? वहां तो गांव में तो उनका कोई देने वाला था ही नहीं, क्योंकि ये सामंतवादी लोगों ने तो उनको निकाल दिया। तो वो गरीब हो गए और रास्ते पे रहने लगे। तो वो गरीब होने की वजह से ही वो लोग गुनहगार बन गए, क्योंकि रिकार्डो ने पुअर लॉ बनाया था कि जो पुअर है उन लोगों को फिर क्या करने का, जो भी गरीब है उनको ऑस्ट्रेलिया भेज दो, या तो जहां जब, क्योंकि आपको मालूम होगा इंग्लैंड की पाशेस्ट 65 कॉलोनीज थे, दे हैड 65 कॉलोनीज। तो वो कॉलोनीज में ये सभी लोगों को ऑस्ट्रेलिया, न्यूजीलैंड, फिजी आइलैंड, सभी जगह भेज दो। तो इस तरीके की जो बात आई, मतलब कि वेलफेयर की बात उसमें नहीं आती है। कार्ल मार्क्स ने ये दोनों का ये करके थियरी ऑफ वैल्यू लेबर लेकिन कहा, लेकिन मार्क्स ने एक बात कही कि जो मजदूर काम करते हैं उसमें नेसेसरी लेबर होता है, नेसेसरी आवश्यक श्रम होता है, कि जिससे ही कैन रिप्रोड्यूस हिमसेल्फ। मतलब कि रोज बरोज तैयार होके फैक्ट्री पे जाना, मरे हुए 16 घंटे काम करके वापस आना, फिर से तैयार होके दूसरे दिन जाना, मतलब ही इज रिप्रोड्यूसिंग, उसको खाना पीना खाया, आराम किया, और ही इज रिप्रोड्यूसिंग द जनरेशन। वो अगली पीढ़ी भी मजदूरों की तैयार करता है, एंड दिस इज कॉल्ड नेसेसरी लेबर। और दूसरा जो है वो सरप्लस लेबर। वो सरप्लस लेबर जो है अतिरिक्त मूल्य है, उससे प्रॉफिट होता है। और ये प्रॉफिट धीरे धीरे जैसे टेक्नोलॉजी बढ़ती है, बड़े ज्यादा यंत्र, वैसे प्रॉफिट बढ़ता ही जाता है। और कॉन्सेंट्रेशन एंड सेंट्रलाइजेशन, संपत्ति का केंद्रीकरण और पूरा कई चंद लोगों के हाथ में, मुट्ठी पर माले तुजार के हाथ में पूरा ही आ जाता है। ये एक बात आती है। गांधी जी जब लेबर थियरी ऑफ वैल्यू की कहते हैं, गांधी जी कहते हैं कि हमें अपने पसीने, कोई भी इंसान बिना काम किए जिंदगी बसर करता है, वो ही एक अनैतिक है, वो पाप है। बिकॉज इससे सिनिंग, आपको काम करना, कष्ट की कमाई, मतलब पसीने की कमाई ही आपकी होनी चाहिए। और इसीलिए हर एक इंसान को कोई भी प्रकार, और उन्होंने कहा कि शारीरिक श्रम और मानसिक श्रम दोनों करने चाहिए। जब भी आप शारीरिक श्रम करोगे, मतलब ये अपना खुद का काम, सफाई करना, धुलाई करना, पखाना साफ करना, अपनी गंदगी को खुद सफाई करना, ये भी उतनी ही महत्व की है। और साथ साथ आपको बुद्धि के रूप से बौद्धिक श्रम भी करना। तो बोथ इंटेलेक्चुअल और ये मतलब दुनिया को समझना, पढ़ना, लिखना, दूसरों के साथ ये कम्युनिटी लाइफ जीना, ये भी उतना ही महत्व है। तो गांधी जी का जो आता है वो मॉरालिटी के साथ लिंक्ड है, वो सिर्फ इकोनॉमिक एक्सप्लॉयटेशन के साथ नहीं, जो मार्क्स ने कहा था। या तो फिर आदम स्मिथ का तो मकसद एक ही था, वेल्थ ऑफ नेशन, अपने देश की वेल्थ बढ़ाओ, ये था। तो ये चारों इकोनॉमिक्स के बीच में ये डिफरेंसेस आ जाते हैं। और उसके बाद हाँ बाबा साहेब आम्बेडकर किस तरह से ये, क्योंकि जब जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी गांधी जी के पास गए कि अभी हमारे देश का संविधान बनाना है, और उन दोनों में काफी सारी बहस हुई, काफी सारे नाम तो उनको दिए गए थे कौन इसके अध्यक्ष बन सकते, लेकिन गांधी जी का कहना था कि सबसे ज्यादा संवेद दलित समाज के लिए, जो शोषित, पीड़ित, त्रस्त और जिन्होंने बहुत दुख और वेदनाएं झेली हैं, और उसके प्रति जो संवेदना रख सकते हैं, ऐसे एक ही इंसान में देख सकता हूँ जो बहुत ज्यादा विद्वान भी है, क्योंकि बाबा साहेब का अर्थशास्त्र भी बहुत पक्का था, उनका लॉ की भी डिग्री थी, और उन्होंने पूरे विश्व के बहुत सारे देशों के जो महत्व के चिंतन है उसके वो ये किया। बाबा साहेब बहुत ही इरोडाइट राइटर थे ना, बहुत लिखते भी थे, जैसे गांधी जी बहुत लिखते थे यंग इंडिया, हरिजन और उससे, वैसे बाबा साहेब भी वैसे ही थे कि जो रोज बरोज जो भी नई नई चीजें होती थी हमारा देश के गुलाम भारत के अंदर, वो सभी में उनका लिखना भी था, और उसके लिए उन्होंने लोगों को ऑर्गेनाइज भी किया था, क्योंकि हमेशा बाबा साहेब कहते थे समझो और संगठित हो, और उसके जहां भी अन्याय दिखा उसके सामने लड़ो। तो ऐसी प्रतिभावान व्यक्ति तो एक ही थे, वो बाबा साहेब आम्बेडकर थे। प्लस कॉलोनियल रूल्स में भी जब अंग्रेज शासन में भी वो लेबर मिनिस्टर का उनको होदा मिला हुआ था, मतलब कि वो जुरिस्प्रूडेंस और अर्थशास्त्र और समाजशास्त्र और फलसफा, ये सभी में बहुत ही अव्वल थे। और एक मानवीय संवेदना सबसे ज्यादा तो उनके जिंदगी के जो अनुभव थे, सोशल एक्सक्लूजन के, अस्पृश्यता के, वो सभी अनुभव से एक नई अनूठी संवेदना जो बाबा साहेब में थी, क्योंकि दूसरे सब लीडर्स या तो मध्यम वर्ग से आते थे या तो गर्भ श्रीमंत घराने से आते थे। कांग्रेस के जो भी लीडर थे कि जो बहुत पढ़े लिखे थे, परदेश में जाके पढ़े थे, लेकिन उनका जो सोशल लोकेशन था, उनका जो सामाजिक जिसमें से आते थे, या तो वो जमींदार घराने से थे, या तो वो बहुत बड़े एरिस्टोक्रेटिक या तो बहुत समृद्ध घर से आते थे। और उनके घर में, जैसे बाबा साहब, हर एक के घर में आर्मी ऑफ सर्वेंट्स होते थे, एक एक के घर में 25, 30, 10, 15 ऐसे लोग। और यही लोगों ने बाबा साहेब को चाइल्ड लेबर का लॉ पास नहीं करने दिया ना। बाबा साहेब ने कितनी कोशिश की, लेकिन बोले मेरी कमिटी में ही जो इतने मेंबर्स है कि इनमें से सभी के घर में, मेरा घर छोड़ के हर एक के घर में बाल मजदूर है, तो वो लोग ने मेरे को बाल मजदूर का, बाबा साहेब बहुत चाहते थे कि बाल मजदूरी देश में ना हो इस तरह से। तो इसकी वजह से गांधी जी ने ही खुद से सुझाव दिया था कि बाबा साहेब को बनाना चाहिए अध्यक्ष। काफी दूसरे लोग नाराज हुए थे, लेकिन गांधी जी ने बहुत ही एम्फसाइज दे के, बहुत ही अपना जोर लगा के कहा था कि बाबा साहेब भी अध्यक्ष होने चाहिए। हालांकि उनके काफी सारे
ये कहीं डॉक्यूमेंटेड है कि डॉक्टर गांधी जी ने ही उनका डॉक्टर अंबेडकर का नाम सजेस्ट किया। कहाँ
मेमोर में है ना, जवाहरलाल नेहरू जी के मेमोर में भी है और कलेक्टेड वर्क्स में भी है। हाँ,
ओके, थैंक यू।
ने जो पब्लिश किए, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन एंड ब्रॉडकास्टिंग ने पब्लिश।
थैंक यू,
प्रकाशित।
Thank you. I think one very idea which connects Gandhi and Ambedkar is that both of them, true economics stands for social justice. For Gandhi, it was more bigger because for Gandhi it promotes a kind of sarvodaya, the good for all, including the weakest, and is indispensable for the decent life.
Correct.
So I think for Gandhi there is no difference between economics and ethics.
Correct.
And there is no distance between that. So that is the one idea which we need to emphasize here. And I think so गंडोत्रा साहब, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे हैं?
जी
जी
मैं
हम लोग 5 मिनट में सबमिट करें। जी
मैं 2 मिनट से ज्यादा नहीं लूंगा।
जी
I will speak both in English and Hindi because there are people who understand the languages differently. My question is, how do we feel Gandhi in our heart? And I will conduct a 1-minute exercise for everybody to do that. हमारे सामने सवाल है कि हम गांधी जी को अपने दिल में कैसे महसूस करें। लेक्चर से, एक्सप्लेनेशन से गांधी दिल में नहीं उतरते, उनको दिल में उतारने का एक तरीका है। इसकी एक छोटी सी एक्सरसाइज मैं आपको कराऊंगा। आपके 2 मिनट से कम समय लूंगा। मैं जो कहूंगा वो आप करेंगे, आंख बंद करके कुछ इमेजिनेशन करेंगे। I will speak something and you will imagine that with your eyes closed. Please close your eyes and follow my instructions. अपनी आंखें बंद करें और मैं जो कहूं उसे करने की कोशिश करें। अपने मुंह से गहरा सांस लें और कल्पना करें कि ये हवा आपके दिल में जा रही है। Breathe in deeply from your mouth and imagine that the air is going to your heart and not your lungs. And keep breathing. Now imagine Mahatma Gandhi, yes, our dear Bapu, is there with you, sitting next to you or standing next to you as you like. कल्पना करिए कि महात्मा गांधी, जी हाँ, हमारे बापू गांधी आपके पास विद्यमान हैं, आपके साथ हैं और आप उन्हें महसूस कर पा रहे हैं। Feel his presence from the depth of your heart with all your faith in him and ask him for the guidance in this violent world. गांधी जी को अपने पास महसूस करें और अपने दिल से जो आप उनमें विश्वास करते हैं, वो विश्वास करते हुए उनसे आज के हिंसामय जमाने में कैसे रहा जाए, इसमें मदद मांगे। Ask him for his blessings for you, your family and your loved ones. गांधी जी से अपने लिए, अपने परिवार के लिए और अपने चाहने वालों के लिए आशीर्वाद मांगे। Ask him what to do when you are faced with violent situations in your day-to-day life. आपके जीवन में जब हिंसात्मक स्थितियां आती हैं, ऐसा माहौल बनता है जो हिंसा है, उसमें आप क्या करें, इसके बारे में गांधी जी से मदद मांगे। Ask him for a life with unity of thinking, feeling and action. आप उनसे वो रास्ता, वो दिशा मांगे जिसमें आपकी सोच, आपका मन, आपकी भावनाएं और आपकी गतिविधियां एक ही दिशा में हों, ताकि आप खुश रह सकें। When you have completed this exercise, you can gently open your eyes and join us back in this time and space. जब आप इसे कर लें, सो सहजता से अपनी आंखें खोल के हम सबके साथ वापस इस मीटिंग में आ जाएं। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। एक सजेशन है, थैंक्स अ लॉट, दिस इज अ सजेशन। आज जो आपने इस 1 मिनट में महसूस किया, उसके बारे में बाद में एक नोट बनाएं, आपको क्या लगा, कैसा लगा। और ये एक्सरसाइज आप 1 हफ्ते तक 1 या 2 बारी किसी भी समय 1-2 मिनट लगा के करने की कोशिश करें, शायद आपको कुछ नया दिखेगा। The suggestion is that whatever you felt in this 1 minute, 1.5 minute that you close your eyes, later on, make note of what you felt for yourself. You don't have to share with anybody. And try to do this exercise of 1.5 minute for next 1 week, once or twice a day, whenever you feel like. From the experience of myself and many others, you might see the Gandhian's way of life happening for you in your life. Thank you very much. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सुधीर जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और इट इज वेरी 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 डीप।
This is the practical way that we learn in the humanist movement how to be Gandhi. I would say that, how to be Gandhi, how to...
Yes, thank you so much. Because Gandhian sadhana or Gandhian economics, spirituality is very important thing. And so in Sumakar's sense, Buddhist economist. So meditation is very important part of that sadhana. So thank you so much. And on behalf of Gandhian School of Democracy and Socialism, I am very much happy and I feel so glad that all of you joined, more than 90 people joined in this meeting. And so it shows a kind of thrust for Gandhi. We live in a civilization where desire dominates, and there again we find Gandhi as a hope. And for that matter, economics also. When we think about Gandhi, we don't think about economics because both of them is like 2 inches. But we have to again revisit our common sense. We can think about Gandhi, we can think about his sadhana, and will make the world full of justice, beauty, dignity, and life for all. So with this brief, I would say learning insight of Gandhi, I again say thank you so much, all of you. Particularly Professor Vibhuti Patel, Madam. Whenever she comes, she invites us to think something very deeply. And with this lecture, again, she invites us to think and realize. And Sudhir ji, Antonio, we are very much privileged to have Antonio from all the way from USA. We can see Professor Gyan Gului, who is from Italy. And this time we did not invite him, although we always invite him to share his thought and ideas. Dr. Veronica, Professor Anand Kumar, our co-nurturer of GSDS, Dr. Veronica, Dr. Alok Bajpai, and all friends who present here and also on Zoom platform. So thank you so much for your kind participation. We look forward for your kind interest in our coming dialogue as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randhir. Thank you very much. Thank you, for Professor Patel. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Wanted to know some of the books. I